Hey everybody, welcome to another CrushLivePoker.com hand review. This is Bart's take, and welcome to TCH Live. I'm going to be doing a review of interesting hands coming from TCH Live at the Texas Card House, Austin, every single week. Most of the time over on the TCH Live channel, sometimes here on the Crush Live Poker channel. But do me a favor, if you like this video and like the channel, please subscribe and hit that like button and head over to TCH Live and check it out and subscribe over there. The Solve for Why guys are actually coming in, and if you're watching this today on Friday on March 6th, we're going to be doing a big 5-10 game with Matt Berkey, Christian Soto. That starts at 7 Eastern, 6 p.m. Central Time. The Solve for Why guys are going to be at the Texas Card House Austin for the entire weekend. There's going to be a tournament on Saturday with the final table streaming on TCH Live. And then on Sunday, they're going to have a 5-5 game streamed at 6 p.m. Central Time as well. So a lot of action over at Texas Card House Austin. But of course, I've been playing mostly on Mondays, which is the big 5-5 no limit game. And I'll be commentating probably maybe twice a month, something like that. So we're going to review this hand that has been talked about. And there isn't a whole lot necessarily to the hand in terms of it was a cooler spot. I mean, unless you're living under a rock, you've probably seen it. And it's between one of the regulars in Austin, who goes by Westlake, Matt, over here in seat 6, and I'm over here in seat 7 or seat 7 and seat 8, depending on how they put up the seat numbers. But I did get a lot of questions about this hand, and something kind of peculiar happened in the hand. And I want to go through my thought process as well. Now, last week I was actually stuck quite a bit. I did not have a great week. I was stuck about 8,000, but this week I ended up basically in the positive for about 12,500. Now, Matt had just entered the game. There was a guy that broke that actually busted right before him. So this is one of his first hands. And this is about 4 hours and 40 minutes into the live stream from Monday, March 2nd. And again, you can check out, I'll put in the link in the description, the entire clip, the entire video. If you want to take a look at it, it's up for free. So that's where this is, about 4 hours and 41 minutes in. And this is advertised as a 5-5 game, but in this particular hand, we're playing 5, 5, 10, 20. So we're just under, I would say, 300 big blinds effective with the ante. Pretty deep for a 5-5 game. As you can see here, Matt is going to raise it up here to 60 with pocket sevens, and I've got queen in the hijack to his immediate left. So I make it 200. This is all very, very standard. It's going to get folded around to Coins over here, who is in the double straddle. He has the 20 on. We were doing a round of 20 in this particular spot in this hand. Not all the time, but in this hand we were doing 20. And Coins is going to eventually end up making the call here. I have no idea why this guy with the hat is fake tanking with 10 deuce, but he was doing that all night. So it gets around here to Coins with 5-6 of hearts. And Coins is going to call. And of course, I always recommend in my training stuff, Crush Live Poker, that you don't want to call, you don't want to cold call 3-bets in between, because of course, the guy who opened for the raise, if he knows what's going on, he can easily 4-bet. But we do have some players that like to play a lot of hands, and I'm not going to get after them because, I was pretty card dead, over the course of the night. I think I only ended up with about a 20% VPIP, and there are guys that play 35 and 40%. And usually when you're up at 35 and 40%, it's probably going to be reflective of sometimes calling, cold calling 3-bets in between. But you just have to be careful. Like I said, I've made the deviation, sometimes calling in position when I don't think that the initial opener is going to 4-bet. But Matt is definitely capable of 4-betting to pick up the dead money. I had some graphical sort of reset here. But we're going 3 ways. 5-6 of hearts, queen, and pocket sevens here. And I want to point out something that's going to be very, very important here. And I'll talk about it more as this hand goes on. Let's take a look over here at Matt's hand. Notice that he has some green chips in his right hand that he is shuffling on the rail. I have never seen this before by anyone. I've actually never seen anybody shuffle chips on the rail. I don't know if he does this normally. It could be a function of the fact that when you're playing on these TV tables, and especially at the World Series of Poker, like when I was at the Monster Stack, the rails are very high, and the table is very deep. So it's not like playing on a regular poker table. It feels a lot different. Like I said, this one is not as pronounced as the final table at the World Series, but it just doesn't. It wouldn't surprise me if Matt doesn't normally do this, but for whatever reason, whether it's just a habit, I don't know, nervousness, he does it on this table just because it feels different. But I do want to point that out, that he has chips here in his right hand, because that's obviously going to come into play. Right now, it's just green chips. Of course, the pinks are 500s, the blacks are hundreds, the reds are $5, and these sort of beige ones are tip chips. Okay, wow, look at the flop here, and everybody in the live chat's like, oh boy, Bart's gonna eat it here again. Bart's gonna eat it here again. So comes out 7-3 deuce here, right? Rainbow, and you can see the chat like already, coming out. So obviously, Matt has a set, top set, and I've got an overpair, and we're deep. So the pot's $620. Usually, when you are in a multi-way scenario, you don't bet as much to reflect the fact that people shouldn't be defending as wide because it's multi-way, and they don't share the equity responsibility that they do if it was heads up. I'm definitely betting here because I know that Coins is V-pipping pretty high out of seat 5, and I don't think that he's folding a pair even next to act here. So it's actually more about targeting probably one of the looser players at the table here in Coins, more so than targeting Matt, who's going to be pretty much the tightest player. Him and I probably going to be the tighter players in this full ring game. So I bet 275 here. And, Coins here has got a gut shot here to a 4 and a backdoor heart draw. If he's in this hand, a case could actually be made for him check raising the flop in this particular spot. It's really weird to do the ranges out, though. And this is where a lot of people it kind of gets misapplied because, well, if he's raising here, is he raising all the sets? Does he have deuces? Does he have threes? People would be like, well, he's not going to have deuces or threes because he cold called the 3-bet. Well, he has 5-6 of hearts. So maybe he would. But it's obviously check raise. It would be raising a very, very thin range, right, of 3-6-9 combos. He doesn't have 2-pair. So normally you would usually not raise here if you wanted to play balanced because you just don't have all that much value. And that's obviously going to come into play here, as we get over here to Matt as well. So Coins is going to make the call. And I would say that Matt could probably go either way with it here. I mean, obviously, it's a spot where I could easily be c-betting ace high, ace king. I do not necessarily have to have a pair. He's probably incentivized to check raise here because Coins has called, get some money in the pot. But, as somewhat of a deviation, if you're in there with a player that is calling very, very light, which I think Coins is, capable of doing here in this spot, like with any pair and any gut shot, even though there's more money in there, the incentive to start raising isn't as high because it's not like the guy's strong. If you had like a nitty player to the right that's called, maybe you would start to incentivize as a check raise. Of course, you can sort of go down that rabbit hole because if I know that seat 5 would be a nitty player and then Westlake Matt is check raising, that calling range and my c-bet, then it starts to put pressure on me where I actually might just get out of the way because I'm in the middle, right? So he's got a decision here, obviously, whether or not he wants to raise or to just call. I think that I would tend to raise on the smaller side for him, but I think the calling is fine as well. So he makes the call, and I'm pretty much screwed. Of course, I don't know it, but we go to the turn.
When you do have top set, you kind of... Oh, my goodness. I can't believe it.
Oh, no.
I can't believe it. I can't.
So
I just stood
obviously,
up for my.
a very, very
Bart can't
fortunate
check back
turn
there.
for
I don't
me
believe him, Mike. No, no, he's
as
not.
I
He's
hit
going for
a
value.
set,
Too deep.
and it is going to get quickly checked over to me, as I expected. And for a second here, I had a brief second in my head of possibly checking this one back, because a lot of times in three bet pots, especially heads up, if you use a small sizing on the flop, you are allowed to use a polarizing sizing on the turn, especially when a card comes that's better for your range than your opponent. Polarizing means you start to bet large or check, representing, say, like top pair plus, over pairs plus, things like that. It's a multi-way situation, though. It's very, very hard to work that out when you've got a cold caller in between in this particular scenario. So, three things went through my hand. I was like, is my hand so big here and I cover the board so much that I could check this back? Then number two, I thought, should I be ever over betting here on the turn? And then I thought of those two things and I was like, both of those things probably aren't going to be the best play. And then I thought, wow, well, if I had like aces, kings, maybe even jacks or tens here, or ran into ace queen, what kind of bet sizing would I make here? And I think a 1/3 pot sizing is probably a pretty good sizing. So, not only for balance reasons here with my queen, I felt like this is going to be a good bet sizing, anyways, right? With this particular hand. But here, I cover basically the entire board. It's very, very difficult for anybody for the queen to help out anyone. I do notice that the backdoor clubs here come in. Somehow, if someone had like a 7x of clubs, ace 4, ace 5 of clubs, something like that, right? So I'm thinking about it for a while and I'm like, all right, let me bet, maybe just over 1/3 the size of the pot, 500 to 600. Pot will be like 2,400, something like that. And then I can figure out how much I'm going to bet on the river, obviously across clean rivers. But I do like the sizing. And this is inherently balanced, I feel like, because I think I would make this play possibly with even tens plus here for a little bit of protection, aces, kings, and even ace queen. So it's really, and also bluffs here too. I mean, it's important to, if you want to play like a balanced strategy, that if I were to pick up like my nut backdoor flush draw bluffs, hey, like I could make this bet. Now, as a live exploit, though, of course, which I am definitely, I definitely do many, many times. Sometimes I will actually bet larger here as a bluff and squeeze the guy in the middle. Like if I had picked up ace king of clubs, ace four of clubs, because if I bet 575 here and coins like has a 7, has ace 3, he might call, whereas if I start betting larger, he might fold. So, yeah, is that inherently unbalanced? Sure. But it's it can definitely be the best sort of approach for making money. So Coins doesn't have any, he doesn't have any choice here as I bet 575. He's going to get out of the way and it's going to get over to Matt, and obviously Matt's screwed. Gotta point something out here. Remember how I pointed out that he had quarters up on top of the rail before? Now let's take a look what he's got here now. He's got black chips up on the rail, and it looks like between 1,500 and 2,000 blacks. This is really, really important in terms of what I did in this particular hand and what I was thinking. Remember, the pinks are 500s, the blacks are hundreds, and the quarters are green chips. So, I think for Matt, once he check calls the flop, he has a very, very standard check raise here because he's super deep. And you got a really good card, too. I mean, it's a high blank, so it might obviously encourage me to continue to bluff. I'm going to continue to bet my over pairs, things like that. I might even continue to bet jacks or 10. So it was a pretty good card for him. And he definitely needs to start making, he definitely needs to start putting money in the pot. Like if he makes it, say, 1,500 and I call, the pot will be, right around, say, 4,500 and I'll have 3,700 left. I might even go a little bit on the larger side if I was him and maybe go like 1,800 to 2,000 just to set up the amount of money. Because if you only go maybe 3x, it's a hefty bet. I mean, he could do that 3x and then polarize all in at the end here too. So, but I definitely think he needs to check raise here at this stack depth from out of position. And that's exactly what he does. So he is going to make a check raise here. And we're pretty standard stuff here. up until this point. He makes a check raise, and he goes like slightly under 1500. I think he makes it 1400. So he makes it 1400 here. So this is how I play this out in my head. This is always how I do the math. I'm like, all right, if I were to call the raise, how much would the pot be? In this case, I'm like, all right, well, it's, 800 more. So it's going to be like maybe 42, 4300. And then I think to myself, how much more does my opponent have left in their stack in this particular given situation to try to figure out whether or not I want to call here or shove here? Just in terms of the pure, I'm not even thinking about balance right now. The first thing that I thought of in this spot was how would my opponent's pot odds be if I were to shove? And that's how I do that. So I'd be like, like I said, 825 plus the pot, right? 4,300. All right, let me look back at his stack. Now, I have to tell you that I have problems with chip colors and stack colors. I've talked about this. If you guys are Crush Side Poker subscribers, I have basically what is this thing called dysgraphia, which is a writing disability and fine motor skills in your hands, where I literally write like a 4-year-old. I can barely print. When I'm filling out one of the hardest things that I can do, really one of the hardest things it is for me in life to do is actually to fill out forms, block print. Obviously, we don't write that much nowadays, right? But the only time you ever really do it is in forms. And it's easier for me to do cursive, which is a common thing with dysgraphia because my pen or my pencil doesn't come off the paper. And I have real trouble like staying inside of lines. So dotting I's, T's. When I was a kid, I asked my mom about this, cutting stuff, drawing, all that stuff. The reason why I bring that up is because I think it's related to the issue that I have, which is my mind registering chips that I'm not super familiar with and basically registering them correctly, usually having to do with the way that I put out chips. So whenever I'm in a tournament, because I've live misclicked so many times, I verbalize everything. I literally verbalize it. And I have made huge blunders. I remember in the 10K Raz, the one that I final tabled, we were down to like 15 people left in the Raz. And I had a king, which is a bring in Raz, which is basically unplayable. And I threw out the wrong chip color. And they made me bring it in for the full amount, which any of you play Raz is like ridiculous. I ended up winning the hand, funny enough, because I had deuce 3 underneath. But I've just made so many live blunders. Like I said, the reason why I'm bringing this up is just because I looked over up at his chip stack. So, okay. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, all right, well, he's got 3 pings here. Yeah, I'm going to gaze over. He's got 3 pings here. Maybe he's got about 500 in blacks, right? That's 2,000. And then he's got maybe 2,500, maybe about 3,000 or so, left in his stack. Of course, from my angle, I didn't see the reds here, and I probably didn't count the little green. So I'm looking at this, and I'm like 5, 2, 25. I was probably thinking it would be like, 2,700 more in my head. So I'm like, if I call here, the pot's 43. If I jam, the pot's going to be 2,700 for him to call, which is basically about what, like almost 3-1. Right? 2.5 to 3-1. And that's at that point where I was like in my head, I'm like, man, he's getting almost 2.5, 3-1. 3-1 is 25% equity needed, right? 2.5 to 1 is like 28% equity needed. If he's got a combo draw, well, obviously I started to think about like the range of hands that he might have here. Like he sets, make a whole lot of sense, but then I'm thinking, well, what about combo draws? Like ace 4 of clubs, ace 5 of clubs. I don't think he's opening 4-5 of clubs, although he is from +3. Let's just think about that, and 5-6 of clubs here too. So, there's like 4 combo draws that sort of just jump out at me here, and I don't know if he has those. And then of course the 7s. I'm not sure if he's opening deuces or 3s. But usually, this is going to be like a lot of a lot of value. Now, this is where the question comes in, and this is where I took some flack for this. So in this particular spot, coming back to me, what would I do with my range here? Like if I had aces or kings, what would I do? Well, if I had aces or kings, I wouldn't just jam, right? Especially even thinking that he only has like 25 to 2700 left, basically in his stack. I wouldn't jam. And actually, excuse me, you know what it is? He's got two pinks there. That's what it was. So it's not 50. So it's two pinks, 1500, 2000. This is what I'm looking at here. So I think that he's got like 2300 left. That's what it was, 15, because these are two pinks. So I think he's got 2300 left. So I'm like, if I call here, the pot's going to be 43 plus 23. It's going to be like 66, 2300 for him to call. I actually remember it perfectly. So I'm like, he's getting like 3-1 here. Like if he's got a combo draw, which is basically like a 12 out draw, he's going to call here, right? So, and obviously with the set, he's going to call here too. So here's the thing, like obviously if I had aces, if I had kings in a spot like this, if I had ace queen, if I had any hand, yeah, I'm not going to shove. He's showing like immense strength. So if I'm not going to shove with those hands, if I wanted to stay balanced, obviously, then I should probably call here with my entire range. And I buy that argument. I think that is definitely the proper approach, especially against a professional player that is, capable of laying down a hand. However, there's a flip side to this, though. At this assumed stack depth, where I thought he only had 2300 left in his stack, if he is going to check raise some of his bluffing, like his semi-bluff combo, or his combinations of semi-bluffs on the turn, and not follow up on the river, then that's a disaster. Say he's got ace 4 clubs, 4 5 of clubs, ace 5 of clubs. He makes it 1400, right? I call. He only has 2300 left. The pot's going to be like 4300, and then he has give ups at the end. So he checks the river, and I win the pot. Whereas he would have called a jam, a 3-bet jam on the turn, then it's an absolute disaster. And that was what was going through my mind. I thought that if I jammed here, he was going to be getting 3-1, and he wasn't folding any hand that he was check raising here. That he wasn't folding any hand that he was check raising, and I didn't want to lose the value from those semi bluffs that might give up. And I was like, he's just going to call with a set anyways. However, as we stated, look at this. He has more money. So if I knew that he had 3,800, you can see that I can't see these chips. If you knew that if I knew that he had 3,800 instead of 2,300 here, I think that the right play here is to call, right? It is to call because then at that point, the issue is that if he does have combo draws that are check raising on the come, now if I jam, he's only basically getting 2-1. It's like a pot-sized jam, and he can fold, or he should fold, especially if he thinks that I've got draws, right? So that's why I would call here if deeper. It also keeps, it's also a balance thing, right? It also keeps your balance because I'm basically not shoving back with any hand. There's discussion of, well, do I have bluffs here? Do I have 3-bet jams here? Like, am I doing this with ace 4 of clubs, ace 5 of clubs? This is such an extreme example, right? It's a 3-bet pot in a 3-way, multi-way hand with a guy cold calling in their pre-flop. Like, you gonna try to run this in like Monk or Solver? Good luck. But one of the things that I will say is that if I do have a draw here, like the ace 4 of clubs, ace 5 of clubs, that's going to basically make him extremely skewed towards value because he can't have a draw. The 4 of clubs being a huge blocker type card in his hand. So if he's going to be skewed towards value, why would I jam those hands? So yes, you can go down the rabbit hole and you can say, well, pocket queens is an unbalanced jam if you're not jamming ace 4 of clubs as a bluff, if you don't have any 3-betting hands as a bluff. And I will acknowledge that, and which is why it's probably a call at this stack depth. But if you play the pot from my perspective at the perceived stack depth, you can see why I'm just jamming here. Now, give credit for Matt that he thought about it and he didn't snap off, and he said, I only lose to one hand. And I said, I mean, I only lose to one hand. You know, do you have it? Do you have it? And then he was like, do you have ace four of clubs? Do you have ace five of clubs? Something like that. And then he finally said, you know, I can't fold, I call. He asked to run it twice. I said, I only run it once, which is, if you're familiar with my training material, it makes no difference. I'm trying to only run it once, but it doesn't make any difference. But I would, in the most part, I'm going to be only running it once. And obviously he doesn't quad up. Now, one of the things that got me sort of thinking about this hand was the fact that when Matt L., who had the big night, came over and commentated on it, him and I think some of the Austin locals, I think they were on a chat and they were talking about, well, could you possibly fold there 7-7? And when Matt L. came over and talked to Matt about it, I was like, that's ridiculous. You're saying you're going to have him fold 7-7, and then I said, like, he was pot committed. And then Matt said, no, I wasn't pot committed. You potted it all in on the turn. It was a pot size bet left, right? And I was like, what do you mean it was a pot size bet left? Like, you didn't have that much. And then I just, at the night, I chalked it up to being, oh, I must have just miscounted, something that I've done many, many times before. But then, of course, when I went back and watched it, because I wanted to watch the stack size, I realized that's what happened. Obviously, Matt is not playing any type of angle. There's no nefarious intention whatsoever. I think it has to do with the high rails. I don't even know if he knows that he was doing it. He's obviously not trying to hide chips, but it was just one of those sort of perfect storm things where I missed the fact that he had chips. And, you know, stacked up is very, very important. It would have played out the same way. If he was deeper, I would have called the turn. He would have jammed the river. There is something to be said, like I said, in terms of an unbalanced play of just jamming anyways, because you don't want an action card killer to come. But I definitely thought that entire hand was very, very interesting. And I think this might have been one of the biggest pots, if not the biggest pot, of the entire history of the live stream, which goes back to the beginning of the year. But that's going to wrap it up for us. Again, check out TCH Live this weekend. Tonight, if you're watching this on Friday, 6 p.m. Central Time, and then Sunday, with the Solve for Why guys, big game tonight, and then they're going to be streaming a final table of a Saturday guarantee. It is the 5th year anniversary over at the Texas Card House Austin, so if you're in the area, swing on by. I'll definitely be there. And again, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.